There's a story about the word that's used is minstrel, story about a musician, and in this version of the story, he's playing a violin. There was once a travelling minstrel, and he was walking through the forest, and he thought to himself, "I would like some company. I would like someone to talk to as I travel." So he began to play his violin, and of course, the sound of a violin is really quite magical and it attracts people, but it also attracts animals. This is a thread which runs through a tremendous number of stories about the magical power, particularly of harps, and of course, J.K. Rowling uses this. Where the magical harp makes the three-headed dog go to sleep. Well, yeah, that's straight out of Orpheus. But as the minstrel was walking through the forest playing his violin, a wolf heard the beautiful strains of his playing, and the wolf came towards him and said, "That is such beautiful music. I have never heard music so beautiful. Can you teach me how to play like that?" And the minstrel said, "Of course, but you must wait for me a little while." And just off the path was an oak tree which had split. So there was a wide groove in the middle of the oak tree. And the minstrel said to the wolf, "Put your paws in the front, in the gap in the oak tree." So the wolf obediently put his paws in the oak, and the minstrel took a stone and hammered the stone into the gap in the tree so that the wolf was imprisoned there and couldn't pull his paws out. And the minstrel carried on his way through the woods, laughing to himself. But he still thought to himself that he would like a little company. So he carried on playing, and a fox came out of the trees and said to the minstrel, "It's such beautiful music. I would love to learn to play like that." And the minstrel said, "I can teach you, but first we need to wait a while. Now, give me your left paw." And the minstrel tied the fox's left paw to a hazel tree growing by the path. And then the minstrel tied the fox's right paw to a hazel tree that was growing by the path. And then he let go, and as the hazel trees sprang back, the wolf found himself dangling in mid-air. The minstrel said, "Wait for me there." And the minstrel carried on down the path, still playing his violin and still playing his enchanting music, but still not finding another person to talk to. And a hare heard the minstrel playing and came running out of the trees and said, "That is the most beautiful music I've ever heard. Can you teach me to play like that?" And the minstrel said, "Of course, but first you must wait a while." So the minstrel tied a rope around the hare's neck and tied the other end of the rope to a tree and said, "Run round the tree 20 times. So the hare ran around the tree 20 times, and of course by this time he was tethered to the tree. And so the minstrel carried on walking through the woods, and after some time he found a woodcutter. And the man was entranced and enchanted. by the beauty of the minstrel's playing, and he stood as if one transfixed, still holding his axe in his hand. But by this time the wolf, who was strong and cunning and clever, had managed to pull his paws out of the groove in the oak, and he was furious. He was angry, and he ran through the wood, and he heard the fox's cries. "Please, can someone rescue me? I have been tricked." When he saw the wolf, he cried out, "Oh, brother wolf, please get me down. I was tricked by the minstrel." So the wolf bit through the cords that bound the fox, and together they ran through the forest until they came to the hare. So together they bit through the cord that bound the hare to the tree, and all three animals ran through the forest, following the sound of the minstrel's violin playing, which didn't sound quite as beautiful to them by then. So the woodcutter looked at the three animals and thought they bear ill will to the musician. So he swung his axe, and the wolf, the fox, and the hare decided that discretion is the better part of valour. And they ran and they ran and they ran through the forest. And the minstrel thanked the woodcutter, placed his violin on his back, and walked out of the forest and out of this story. That's a little bit of a tricky one because, unlike most stories, justice does not prevail. Because the minstrel's not a particularly nice character, and of course, in most stories, musicians are actually musicians are usually goodies, aren't they? But of course, there is a huge tradition in storytelling of people or animals being calmed and enchanted, or possibly sent to sleep by the sound, usually of a harp. That's an interesting one because the violin isn't that old an instrument. If you've seen the film Shakespeare in Love, the musicians in that are not playing violins; that they are playing the viol, an older, an ancestor of the modern violin, if you like. Interestingly, it's often referred to as the devil's instrument. The devil often plays a violin. If you think of things like the country and western song of "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," where the devil is, of course, an excellent violin player. Fiddles do appear a great deal in Irish stories, and it's often fiddle players who are abducted by elves and fairies. So stay tuned. There probably are more stories with harps, violins, and pipes in them. Yes, features in The Wind in the Willows if you read one of the unabridged editions. Meanwhile, this humble teller will, like the minstrel, walk out of this story. I hope to see you again very soon, and please, if you'd like to hear more stories, please do subscribe. And good day to you.